Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about early spring bass fishing across the country. Snow is melting. We are getting ready for spring bass fishing, which is amazing bass fishing. Let's get into the best tips and baits for early spring. Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back. Early spring is the time, is a great time to catch a huge bass. But today I'm going to talk about my best baits, but I'm also going to talk about one misconception that I feel like happens every year. I fell prey to this when I was a beginner, and I want to really speak to it today. So let's first talk about where bass are and then what that misconception is. So first thing is bass are moving up, right? So this is early spring. They've been deep for a long time, deep in the middle of your lakes or ponds. And now they're starting to move up for what's called the pre-spawn, right? They're starting to find those shallow places. They're starting to feed up, right? With the spawn coming, they're starting to feed up a lot. So that's another thing you want to really take advantage of. They're starting to suspend. So when the water's colder, right? So in New York, we're looking at 40 to 45 degrees in the early spring. That's really cold water, and they're starting to suspend. So some of the baits we're going to use are going to take advantage of where they are in the water column. They're really becoming more active, right, in this time of year. Now, one big thing that all bass fishing YouTubers have said, and I fell prey to this, is red, right? Bass are looking for crawfish. And that may be true in places like Florida, Tennessee, Texas. But one thing I realized as a New York angler, as an angler that's up north, is red doesn't really work the way they say it does. Now, I'm not saying they're wrong, but what I am saying is that we have to take our location into account. I feel like a lot of times beginners, we don't get the opportunity to take our location into account because some of the biggest bass fishing YouTubers and pro anglers are in the South, and they're telling us what they're doing. But I feel like for me, I have had more success on shad presentations than on red presentations. So that's just one misconception that I've seen, is that, you know, when I go through my baits, yes, I have some red in there and I've collected quite a few red baits, but it really comes down to where you are and also the water conditions. In the spring, especially in New York, it rains a ton, right? So what the water looks like is gonna also dictate what baits you use. So as I go through my baits, I'm gonna talk about where I might fish it and what kind of applications I might fish these baits in, but these are my top baits for early spring. All right, first up we have some crankbaits. So I have two. I have the Spro Alf. I have the Spro Little John. So I have my red, but I also have my yellow chartreuse with black back. And I also have my favorite, probably crankbait of all time. It's called a square bill. That's my 13 fishing scamp. Love these colors. Love the action on these. These have a little bit of rattle. So where I'm fishing these are shallow, right? Trying to take advantage of those fish that are moving up shallow for the spawn. Now, another thing that I really like, especially about the Spro Little John, not as much, but the 13 fishing scamp, is that it has some rattle, some noise to it. Now, when the water is murky, you really want to take advantage of things like sound and vibration. So especially this one here, this has a little bit of a glare to it, so it might reflect some sunlight in the murky water, but also that sound in the murky water will attract attention from bass. So something to look forward to when we're talking about crankbaits in the early spring. Another bait that I really love in the early spring, is probably my favorite early spring bait of all time, is the jerkbait. Look at this thing. So I got the Berkeley Stunner here. We have the Rapala Shadow Wrap, and my new favorite, the World Minnow, right? The Shimano World Minnow. Love these jerk baits. This is a bait where we're trying to capitalize on those suspending fish, right? So I'm getting this jerk bait down about 3 to 6 feet. Really reeling it down, and then I'm jerking it, and I'm hoping that we get a reaction, right? So that crankbait and this jerk bait, we're really looking for that reaction bite from the bass, right? So they may be still lethargic, and even though it's aggressive bass, when they see this jerk bait in their area, especially when it's shallower, when they see this jerk bait in their area, sometimes they're not trying to eat it, but sometimes they're trying to get it out of the way. So this jerk bait can entice a bite, and it can entice a reaction that is more defensive and trying to get it out of the area, and in doing so, the bass get caught. So the Shadow Wrap I love because it has that reflection. Once again, murky water fishing, I might use this because it reflects a lot of that sunlight. Even when it's suspending, it's going to use that little metal foil in there to reflect that sunlight and cause a reaction from bass. If I'm fishing more clear water, I'm looking for something like this shad right here. Clown color is still really good. with the Berkeley Stunner and with the Rapala Shadow Wrap. But jerkbaits are so effective in the early spring for multiple reasons. Suspending fish, the reaction, really great bait to use this spring. Another bait that we're going for are chatterbaits, right? Jackhammers, mini maxes, evos, which is the new updated jackhammer that is only $10 as opposed to $20. I got 3 on order right now. But these baits are great because they represent that baitfish presentation. Now for the mini max, I'm going spot remover. This is probably my favorite color, but I also have that fire crawl color and all-time favorite of the bluegill. So these 3 colors I'm using all spring, especially because, once again, that shad presentation, small baitfish right now, are really trying to capitalize on what's going on. Now, if I need a bigger vibration, now if it's murky water, once again, spring, a lot of rain, murky water. Murky water is still good water, but you just have to know how to capitalize on it. This fire crawl might show up a little bit more in that murky water, as well as stuff like this black and blue, right? These shadows will show up more in the murky water, but as well as the vibration. So this big blade will give you a huge vibration. Once again, the jackhammer will give you a huge vibration. If it's more clear water, I'm going with this like blight kind of color, or this, I think it's bruise, I forget what it's called here, but one of these shad presentations for the jackhammer. Really, really positive reactions from this bait in early spring. So let's go finesse here for a minute. I have a couple finesse options for you. One is gonna be a drop shot, more because of that suspending bait, right? The suspending bait, I can get this off the bottom and put it where the fish are. So I got this junior crush worm in this, what is this? In this dark smelt color. I really love this, the Robo Worm. This is Market Rooted Mutilator, but also the Aaron's Magic. 2 great colors to use on a drop shot. Bigger presentation for a worm, but I really love using this drop shot. Another one that I'll use, not as much of a drop shot, but I might put it on a Ned Riddick head, like on a Finesse Shrooms head, and I might get this down to the bottom. Really close to a shad presentation, can also kind of mimic a crawl if you needed to, but these, the flatworms, awesome finesse bait. So there's a couple different options. People use shaky heads as well. I love a shaky head, especially when the spawn is starting to happen a little bit more. You can get that shaky head near the spawning beds and really entice a bite from those bass. All right, my last bait, early spring, late fall, I crush them on this bait. It is an underspin. When we talk about shad presentations, standing out from the crowd, things like that, there's really nothing better than an underspin. I use a strong Largo shad on my underspin, but I've also really started to use the X-Zone Swammer. Electric shad presentations. You could also use it just on a regular. I use the tactical swim head or the tactical underspin. Put it on one of these as well. The swimmer presentation, get it out as far as you can and just bring it to you. Get it out shallow, bring it to you. Go along things like points, right? Points, bluff walls. Really looking to pay attention to those areas where bass are gonna be, and throwing this here, really deadly, really deadly in the spring. So hey, I hope this was helpful for you, really teaching you some basics. I also just put a video out last year about if you're getting ready to learn how to fish. If this is your first spring, getting into fishing, I have a video that breaks down bank fishing from A to Z. Everything you need to know, right? So bring these lures with you, but if you're just learning how to fish, you need to know what to bring, where to fish, how fishing works, how to use the gear. Use my video, The Complete Guide to Bank Fishing. I'll put it in the card right here. It'll tell you everything you need to know. I also have a video on the beginner tackle box if you're looking to get into fishing and you just need to know the basics on tackle. I got you covered. So I hope this video was helpful. Fish this spring. The snow is melting out here. I'm getting ready to get my kayak out, and I'll see you guys in the next video.